Welcome to Premium Cashflow Real Estate Investing Podcast with Sk070. During this program, you will hear guest experts sharing their experiences, best practices, and market insights. We discuss investing in multifamily apartment complexes and how a busy professional can passively invest hassle-free in various opportunities. Your host, Sk070, owns millions of dollars of assets and has done thousands of value-add projects over 20 years now. So listen in for insights. Here's your host, Sk070.
Welcome to another edition of Premium Cashflow Podcast. It is an awesome pleasure to connect with Mike Vann today. Mike Vann is with Trident Multifamily. He's based in Springfield, Missouri. Along with his partners, they have a little over 1,000 units and a $60 million collective portfolio. And Mike himself has been investing for more than 15 years. He has a large personal portfolio, well over 130 houses and small mid-sized multifamily portfolio personally as well. So he comes with a wealth of experience, and we are today going to dig into his story. And it is an absolute pleasure to connect with Mike and connect with such an experienced person like Mike and learn from him and get some expert advice from him. So welcome to the show, Mike. I appreciate you taking time today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Mike, as I shared in the in your sort of brief bio, that with the amount of experience you bring into the table, it is a great pleasure to kind of see how you came about. A lot of listeners would be curious to see your journey. And now that you have syndicated all of this, and on top of it, I should mention that you are all the time, full-time working into medical devices industry, which is a tremendous highlight that someone who's been doing real estate for such a long time and also doing it full-time, working at a job, and now you're doing still the same and you scaled up to a syndication. I mean, absolutely kudos to you. There are not that many people that I know who are wearing so many hats. So I'm delighted to have you. Mike, for listeners, kindly fill us in as to, some more detail in your bio, and we can kick it off.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's been a little over 15 years since I've been investing in real estate, and the whole time I've been working. But the reason I got into it in the first place is, corporate America is great, offers a lot of benefits and can offer a nice job or salary, but there's not a lot of security in corporate America.
Sure.
At some point, you are just a number, and you're always expendable. And so, after making it through a few different layoff situations where our company was laying people off, and and I made it through, realized that I needed another source of income. So turned to real estate, and you see the late night infomercials that make it seem like real estate's easy and lucrative, and it can be lucrative, but it's definitely not easy.
Sure.
It's definitely not a get rich quick thing. It's a get rich slow thing.
Sure.
And so started educating myself way back when, and went out driving for dollars and found my first duplex, for sale by owners. So bought that, self-managed that for a period of time, and realized that I was not a good landlord. Third-party property management is the way to go.
Sure.
So, started with some small multifamily, single family, and then took a break when I changed jobs and went to Texas. I was there for about a year, moved back to Springfield a year after that, and wanted to learn the markets here, because I always knew I wanted to stay in real estate and pursue that as a long-term wealth creation vehicle. So pursued the market here, fixed and flipped a few houses, and really wasn't super sophisticated in my education at that point. So when 2008 hit, my mindset was that people can't get credit to buy my flips, then I'm just going to stop doing this for now. So over the next year or two, I kept educating myself and realized, oh my gosh, I need to be all in, not holding on the sidelines. So immediately jumped back in and started putting feelers out for, through some agents and brokers and bankers, things like that. And a buddy of mine was president of a bank and called me and said a broker stopped by his office and had a different bank owned a 16-unit bank-owned complex. And so asked me if I was interested. So I contacted the broker and ended up pursuing that deal and used my sales / negotiating skills and ended up getting a phenomenal deal on that property.
Awesome.
And then started accumulating more over the following years. That was in 2010. I bought that first larger multifamily, 16 units. Bought it for $450,000.
Wow.
And then held that and sold that in 2017 and 1031. Sold it for $780,000.
Wow.
In 2017 and 1031 that into a 55-unit apartment complex. But along the way, had done a variety of other things. I bought some other multifamily. At that point, I knew multifamily was where I wanted to be. Just economies of scale. 2 is better than 1, 5 is better than 2.
Right.
But at some point after I bought a 4-plex, a 5-plex, 6-plex, after the 16, I kind of got bored. There was not deals were starting to dry up. So bought a package of single family homes from another investor who had done what I should have been doing back in 2008, which is buying all these single family homes for a penny on the dollar. So bought those for a good deal, implemented a program for lease options. And I wanted to do it in a way that was ethical, where we can actually help people get into home ownership, not just churn down payment money like a lot of people do. They get into these things and they get a down payment for someone they know that's never going to convert. And as soon as they default, they keep their money and go sell it again. But we actually helped a lot of people get into home ownership this way. So we did that. Like I said, bought a 27-unit complex, then another 12 units of duplexes from another owner. Then I said 1031 into that 55 unit. Then, as soon as I bought that 55 unit, I've been learning about syndication and wanted to scale up even beyond the 55 from what I could do on my own, and joined a mentoring program and got around people who were doing what I wanted to do. Buying large apartment buildings. These were people that were like I said, they were experienced in syndication. So I partnered up with a few different groups and bought our first deal. So I spent 2017 making connections, broker connections, partner connections, capital connections, things like that, learning the ins and outs of syndication and lending and all the things that are different from personal investing, when you're dealing with community banks and things like that. So since we bought our first deal in 2018, I was a key principal, which means that you actually are signing on the loan, a Fannie Mae loan, and you have to be able to sign on a loan first to have that experience, so to speak, before you can go and sponsor your own deal.
That's awesome.
So sign on a loan to do that, 132 units in Kansas, in Lawrence, Kansas, which is actually now back on the market for sale. And then quickly after that, did another deal for 243 down in Dallas.
Awesome.
With a different group. And then turned around in 2019, worked with the partners that I have now, Carl Silvercroft out of Dallas and Rodney Miller out of Oklahoma City. We had been working with other groups at the same time, through this mentoring program. Decided we wanted to team up and do a deal together.
Awesome.
So we did a deal together. Took it down in early 2019, and worked very well together. We did that as separate entities, and I would suggest doing it not just teaming up with the first person that comes along, but doing it together, but as separate entities before you actually form a company. We did that just to see how well we work together, under pressure. Because it's different sitting around having a beer with someone and versus, you know, in the middle of a deal when you're raising lots of money, having lots of moving parts going on and all the stress is high and everything like that.
Sure.
Seeing how people work together. So we did that, worked very well together. And after that deal was complete, we reflected on that and decided to form Trident Multifamily. And, you know, here we are today. We did another deal later that year under the Trident banner. And just between those two deals, I had actually teamed up with one of my prior partners and did another 348 unit deal down in Dallas. And so once that deal was complete, we decided to only work together going forward. And so that's when we formed Trident, and now we only work with each other. And, you know, we still bring in strategic capital partners, you know, to align with us, align with Trident. But as far as the formation of the company, it's just the three of us.
I see. Thank you for that detail. And I mean, the amount of experience you bring in is just incredible. I mean, there's just not a lot of people who will kind of just sit and say that, okay, I have a 15 years, such a big track record. And that's awesome. So now, Mike, speaking about your first deal, right? As we all say that, you know, like evaluating the markets or specific sub-markets is so important. Can you share, like, how did you kind of, you know, evaluate the sub-market, and perhaps why you chose that particular sub-market to purchase the deal?
Right. Well, you know, early on when I very first started, I didn't know anything about evaluating markets. I just knew I wanted to invest where I lived, you know, and you know, investing, you know, the local market, right? And so if you're getting started and doing smaller deals like that, and you're in a small market, you can get away with that. You can get away with that, you know, not having to worry about so much as far as job trends and income trends. You just need to know the people in your neighborhood that are going to live there can pay the rent.
Right.
But when you're looking at these large syndications and, you know, generating hundreds of thousands of dollars income a month, and you're raising millions of dollars of other people's money, you really have to do a lot of due diligence and take your research seriously, because being a steward of other people's money is a very serious responsibility. And I take that more personal than I would managing my own money. You know, if I'm managing your money, I'm going to be more careful with it than I am my own. So yeah, you look at you know, median household income. You do that because you want to make sure that people that are going to be renting your places are able to afford it. We use the 3x multiple on income. So if your rent's $1,000, you need to make at least $3,000 a month to qualify. You know, the market overall, we want to see within a 1, 3, and 5 mile radius at least that 3x income multiple. That means that you have a large pool of potential renters. You know, we look for places or for areas where population growth is strong. You know, we want to see a consistent population growth. So, you know, you have not only people that can afford your rent, but you also have more people coming into the market, you know, for jobs. We want to see job growth in that market. We want to see good schools. And, you know, a lot of the same things you would look for where you want to live, you know, personally. But, and so those are some of the things you evaluate in the sub-market.
Got it. And anything about, Mike, as to you target any specific asset class, whether you like a C class deal or a B class deal? Can you maybe share what are your thoughts on that?
So A, B, and C class, you know, for your listeners who may not know, A class is the new stuff up to maybe, you know, 5, 10 years old. B class is that early 2000s down to the mid 90s, and the C class is you know, late 80s to even late 60s. Workforce housing. B and C class is more your workforce housing, you know, your blue collar folks, young professionals, things like that. So we target value add B and C class for the simple reason that, you know, and we consider that a sweet spot, because in good times, people are moving up from D to C, C to B, and B to A. In bad times, they're moving from A to B and B to C. So if you have that B and C class, you're right there in the sweet spot to catch them on the way up in a good economy, on the way down in a bad economy.
True, true, true.
And as a matter of fact, with all the uncertainty that we had during this recent COVID crisis, it was something like we've never seen before. So we were really concerned as far as what our assets, how they were going to perform. And to this point, they've held true to the historical norms that multifamily apartment buildings are the best asset class to be in from a real estate standpoint.
Sure, sure.
In a bad economy, our occupancy actually has increased. We've had record collections 3 months in a row.
That's awesome.
And we foresee that trend continuing. And so all the things that people have talked about, why it's a good thing to be in as far as multifamily real estate, actually proved to be true.
True. Awesome. Awesome. Now, specifically there, Mike, do you focus on like a C class specifically or a B class? I mean, I know we said value add, right? One of the things that I wonder a lot of times is that obviously we have been in such a sort of a compressing cap rate environment. A lot of deals are sometimes getting passed on from one syndicator to other, which, like let's say the prior syndicator may have bought those deals perhaps, let's say 5-7 years ago, and now they have kind of, done their part of the business cycle, and now it is on to the newer syndicator, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you start to make sense of the returns and perhaps even see that is there any value add component still left from the prior syndicator and stuff like that? Can you maybe share what are your thoughts and how you kind of go around some of these deals and stuff?
Sure. Well, we look at what has been done by the prior ownership group, but even more importantly, we look at what is the potential left, the meat on the bone, so to speak. So we look at the comps in the market. If the asset we're considering is still from a rehab or amenity standpoint below what the competitors are, and we see rents that are still 10 to 15% below what the competitors are, we consider that enough meat on the bone, so to speak, to see that there's still some value there. I've seen deals trade twice in the last 3 years.
That's exactly what I was referring to, that you typically see like similar deals just come right back from prior syndicator to, and as you rightfully pointed, it could trade a couple of times in the last 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, what I've seen in some markets, especially the Dallas market, for example. So you say you have just 100 unit, to keep it simple. Say you have a 100 unit complex, and the original, they bought, they were all classic units, no rehab units. So the first owner buys it. He rehabs 20% of the units, bumps the rents, proves the concept, increases his NOI, and then puts it on the market to the next guy. The next guy, he renovates another 30% of the units and does the same thing, raises the rent, raises the NOI, and they've done that enough to actually get their target return metric met by sales. So there's still 50% of the units left to for the next guy to do. Right. And so as long as you see that there's still value add left, and you're not solely evaluating the potential based on increasing rents, but you have some valid value add components still to be done. That there are some classic units still left to be rehabbed, that you can legitimately bring those up to the market just what the other ones are, not necessarily beyond that. And and that you're not projecting 2 and 3% rent growth for the next 5 years, because that's we try to be way more conservative than that. But we want to see true value add potential before we pull the trigger on a deal, especially if it's been traded before in the recent past.
Sure. No, and that's absolutely true, that you want to see a tangible story, or like how you can increase the rent. You want to see that, sort of directly coming through. Now, share some of the lessons, Mike, about perhaps, how you went on doing some value add. Was that like maybe perhaps doing some exterior improvements, or, adding some amenities interior wise and things like that? Can you maybe share some things that your group may have done to your assets?
I think one of the most important things is right off the bat is to clean up and beautify the exterior of the complex, because what that's going to do is going to signal the community around you that changes are happening, positive things are going on, and increase traffic to the property. And so once you do that and increase traffic to the property, and the word starts spreading in the community that hey, new ownership's taking over, they're putting money into this place, and it creates that positive awareness in the community and starts getting traffic to your property. Then you're once you get them on site, then you can show them your nice updated unit that you've done. If you go in and start rehabbing units interiorly and don't do anything to the exterior, no one can tell you that anything's any different than it was before. So that's one of the things we do first. We also look at utility conservation. The last deal we did, we saw in that market there should have been around $1,000 to maybe $1,200 a month in utility expense per unit. We saw $1,800 per month, or $1,800 per unit rather, utility costs. And so that was an immediate signal right there that there was significant value add just by implementing utility conservation measures. So we went in from the very first day and started changing out all the shower heads and toilets and water fixtures to low flow, and have seen significant savings just from that alone. And that's without really spending more than a couple $100 a unit to do that. And you're going to see a significant amount of savings there.
Absolutely.
So those are a couple things that I would look at right off the bat to do. And then of course, you go in and just give it a nice interior fresh coat of paint, maybe change some door cabinet door fronts and put new pulls, resurface the countertops, new light fixtures and even door handles. I mean, those are all inexpensive things you can do that will really make a big impact. You start getting into flooring, it's a little bit more costly, but put some vinyl plank flooring down as opposed to having carpet that's been there and for 2 or 3 tenants and has stains in it or something like that. Vinyl plank flooring is a little bit more on the front end. So if you anticipate that cost going in and as part of your capital expenditure budget, that flooring will last for years. And whereas carpet, you may get 1 or 2 tenants out of it, depending on, how much I take care of it. But so those are just a few of the things that we would do from a
Sure. Now, how much typically do you spend per unit, Mike? And again, I know that this can be a subjective question, but if you can give some range or perhaps kind of preface it by saying that if it's a heavy value add that you're replacing some cabinets in the kitchen and doing lots of stuff in the bathroom, can you maybe share some tips around that?
So if you're going into some place that has been rehabbed, for maybe a previous indicator in the last few years, and you're just needing to do a heavy turn, which was basically, clean up, maybe new coat of paint and some minor changes, you may spend $2,500 a door to do something like that. Or if you're going to replace cabinet fronts, flooring, appliances, things like that, you may be spending upwards of, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a door. And so when we say cost per door, that's an all-in cost, because whether exterior interior combined, but just interiors alone, you're looking anywhere from $1,500 to $5,000 a door, depending on the level of rehabbing you do interiorly.
Now, speaking of property management, Mike, what is your strategy? Are you doing third-party property management completely? Can you maybe share some things around how you're managing those?
Yes, absolutely. We do use third-party management. They have the systems and processes in place to do that most effectively. And our best use of time is as asset managers, where we just have weekly meetings with our property management company to assess, how our business plan is being implemented. We have certain metrics in place that we want to see on our Monday morning report, and we measure those weekly, because if it's not measured, it doesn't count.
Sure.
And so we found that to be most effective. At some point in the future, we may take that in-house once we get to a large enough scale where it makes sense. to spend the
Sure.
money to have that
Mhm.
staff on board and everything like that. But yeah, for now we use third party.
Right. Now, a little detail there, Mike, here is when, let's say, you're renovating the units and things like that, are you using the crew from property management itself, or is that outside subcontractor? How's that relationship?
So both. We for the heavy turns and things like that,
Hmm.
you can generally use your on-site staff to do that. Or if there's a large number to be done in a short period of time, you can
Hmm.
hire some, bring on some extra on-site staff and have the property manager manage that uh, effectively.
Sure. Hmm.
As asset managers and having partners helps us to be able to have a more active role in the contracting aspect of things. My background is my family has a construction company, so I
Hmm.
grew up doing that kind of work, and so
Hmm.
I am able to help in regards to bidding those projects out and kind of helping manage those from that standpoint. So there's some projects we will do, and we will manage the contractors. We'll get the bids, things like that. But our third party manager is phenomenal. The one especially we use in Tulsa, she has a lot of her own folks that she's worked with for years and are
Hmm.
very instrumental in doing those especially those heavy turn type situations.
Sure, sure. Now, speaking of your, immense experience, Mike, I mean, you shared earlier, Mike, that you had about 125, single family and mix of mid-size apartment units and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
you came into the syndication business, very well versed, knowing, sort of the entire life cycle of deals where, you are kind of buying them, renovating them, sort of leasing a lot of tenants and things like that. Can you maybe share with our young listeners who may be listening that they want to get into multifamily and perhaps don't have much experience of just real estate in general, or perhaps have not done much into single family and stuff, right? Can you maybe share some insights as to what it takes to be into multifamily, or would you perhaps recommend that typically, there's always a buzz about, oh, you don't need a lot of experience to get into multifamily. Anybody can, typically come in as long as they have good partners and stuff, right? Can you maybe share some thoughts and what is your experience like into this arena?
Mhm. Yeah, you know, that's something that you do hear a lot from these gurus, but you have to keep in mind that they're trying to sell a course. And they also know that a large majority of people who buy the course will never take any action. And
Right.
so, my recommendation is do some self-education. There's a
Mhm.
lot of books and podcasts and free content out there that you can get your hands on to educate yourself.
Sure.
And when you go approach someone to potentially partner up with, you can get in with little to no experience, but you have to have some education, and you
Sure.
have to be able to add value to any partnership that you're going to be a part of.
Sure.
I don't have a problem at all helping someone get started or helping them, teaming up with them, if they can add value to the partnership.
Sure.
Um,
Mm.
so that's one thing I would suggest is be educated before you even talk to people about potential partnerships, um, and be able to add value, whether that's being boots on the ground, being able to go and meet with contractors and property management and folks that are there on the ground where the asset may be, and I live 3 hours away or something like that,
Sure.
or be able to raise capital.
Hmm.
That's a big thing that people can do to add value. We look for strategic capital partners to be able to raise money for our deals, but to be SEC compliant, you can't just be a money raiser. You have to be able to add value in other ways.
True.
So being able to be boots on the ground, being able to do other things to be an active general partner besides just raising money is
Sure.
important. But the capital raising aspect of things is very valuable to syndicators like myself, and we do look for those partnerships. Um, but yeah, the long story short, you can get started with little to no experience,
Hmm.
but you have to get educated first. Then
Sure.
you have to build relationships. Then once you have those relationships, you have to be able to add value to those relationships, and then
True.
continue the education all the way through. Always be learning,
Sure.
always
Hmm.
ask educated questions. It's okay to ask a dumb question here and there because you can't know everything from the beginning,
Sure.
but
Sure. Hmm.
that's something that I would suggest is be educated, bring value, and always be willing to work harder than the next guy.
Sure, sure. Great advice. Great advice. Now, Mike, taking over a large apartment unit is sort of challenging by itself. Like, first few months, you are kind of feeling out what the tenant base is like, if there are any large delinquencies, perhaps if there are any deferred maintenance and things like that. So there's a lot of things like first maybe 60 to 90 days that are kind of in flux. It's like you're feeling out everything, how things are shaping out. Have you had any challenges from perhaps whether it was property management or perhaps issues with your tenants or whether it was deferred maintenance and things like that? Can you maybe share some tidbits about around it, or I don't know if you had any war stories around it as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. Anybody who's been in this game long enough always has some pretty crazy stories. But
Sure.
yeah, there's always challenges. The thing about this business is you always have to go into it with a plan, but you always have to be flexible and willing to pivot and have a backup.
Sure.
So there was a property in Little Rock, Arkansas that we were looking at. Spent a couple months in negotiating, LOIs and back and forth, things of that nature. Did I think 2 property tours prior to getting the LOI accepted. And so between the LOI acceptance and while we were working out the PSA, purchase sale agreement, I asked for an early access agreement so we could walk every unit of the complex. I was certain we were going to execute the contract based on what we had, talked about in the LOI, but I was just getting an uneasy feeling about the transaction and some things that had gone on. So I asked for early access agreements before we signed the contract to be able to access every single unit. And we did. We walked every single unit. We got down to the very last building, the furthest part out of the property. One that we had walked by during a previous property tour. They showed us the one across from it, parking lot from it. Well, we got to that last building and found out that the whole bottom floor had been vacant for years due to sewer backup.
Oh my God.
Had never disclosed any of that. Mold, human waste backup was in, flooding all in these bottom units of this complex, of this building.
Wow.
They had people living upstairs.
Wow.
In
That's
other
amazing.
units. It was horrible. So we spent another 2 or 3 months, or another 2 months, going back and forth on remediation and price reduction and so forth. And finally, we just walked away. We spent 6-7 months of our time, thousands of dollars, and due diligence. Paying plumbers and everything else to try and get this worked out, and finally just walked away. And so, you sometimes just have to walk away. So that's a story about due diligence.
Wow.
As far as property management and takeover, there's always going to be issues with tenants and back rent that's owed and things of that nature, which you find. And so, one of the things I would suggest is they want to take over, do a thorough lease audit, go talk to every single tenant and make sure that what's on paper is actually what's
matching up.
Up, right?
Sure.
And we had even used a property management company that we had used at other properties, but in a new market. And so we got to this new market, and in this particular market, the team wasn't as strong as they were in other markets. And so we gave them the benefit of the doubt for the first 2 months, and then we got rid of them and brought in a new management company who's been phenomenal. And
Sure.
so, you
What
know,
were the issues like? Were they not like good on maintenance or reporting or like just
reporting was a nightmare. The on-site that they specifically the on-site that they hired was doing some shady stuff.
Mhm,
She
mhm.
was really lazy and hiding stuff and not reporting stuff and actually fraudulently signing money orders over to herself and
Oh my God.
yeah, doing some just crazy stuff. And so we rooted all that out because we are so actively involved, in the asset management piece. Uh, we rooted all that out and got rid of them. We gave them 1 month to clean it up. It didn't happen. The next month they were gone.
Wow.
And,
Mhm.
and so hire slow, fire fast. That's another thought.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And this is the tried and true experience advice that I love all the time.
Mm.
And now, Mike, a couple of last questions. As seasoned as you are in this business, right? What are some of the great advice that you have received from perhaps past investors or any fellow, colleagues that you have networked with in the past that kind of keeps you in check and disciplined as you kind of go about your investing journey every day?
Yeah, well, first and foremost is always keep learning. You can
Sure.
never know everything in this business or in any business for that matter. Um, Persistence is key. You will get beat up a lot of times in this business, by losing deals or having people tell you things that aren't necessarily true or not tell you things that they should have told you or, not following through on promises. And
Hmm.
so you can't take all that personally. It's just some people aren't great business people, or some people aren't as forthright and honest as you may be yourself. And so, don't take it personally. Be persistent. Keep forging ahead because eventually it's a numbers game. You look at enough deals, you put in enough offers, and you stick to your guns, your fundamentals. You'll win a deal, and when you do, it'll be the right deal
Sure.
and it will perform as you want it to and expect it to. Because anybody can get a deal nowadays. You just got to overpay.
Great advice. Now, what are some of the things you're looking forward to, Mike? That I know that we are kind of just almost going through this COVID pandemic. I know there's a talk out there that perhaps we may see some deals or some pricing reductions and things like that. What is your take on all of this sort of conversation?
Well, initially people thought this was going to be, what the big downturn everybody had been waiting for all these years, and there was going to be fire sales bigger and better than 2008. And to this point, haven't seen any softening in prices.
Hmm.
There were several deals that came off the market
Hmm.
that have now started to come back on.
Hmm.
I have seen a couple folks that I know that did get a price reduction, not much, but some. There's always
Hmm.
going to be those one-offs that, for whatever
Sure,
reason, you can get a huge deal on.
sure.
But overall, have not seen a big softening in prices. And not to say it won't come, but we're not sitting around waiting. We're still pursuing. We have an LOI out right now, actually,
I
uh,
see. Hmm.
and so we're still pursuing deals. But like I said before, we stick to our fundamentals and we pursue the right deals. We want to make sure that whenever we get a deal, it's going to perform to our return metrics. So yeah, that's kind of my take.
Awesome. And one last question, Mike, there. You talked about return metrics. What sort of criteria you go by for, doing your deals?
So we invest for cash flow. We don't invest on speculation.
Hmm.
So when we look, at a deal for us to be able to put an LOI in, it has to be the price that's going to allow us to give a minimum 8% cash on cash return.
Hmm.
Our hold period is anywhere from 3 to 7 years.
Hmm.
So we underwrite everything on a 5-year hold period.
Sure.
And we want to see 8% cash on cash return during those 5 years, typically with a 80% overall return, which equates to a 16% annualized. So any kind of return we see on an annualized basis, we want to see a minimum half of that return in cash flow from operation of the property. So
Hmm.
that way you're not speculating on future returns. You
Sure.
actually are delivering a good solid return just from cash flow of operation of the business.
Mhm.
And the upside is just that, it's upside.
Sure.
We try to be conservative when we look at those at our exit metrics as well, from an exit cap rate to be as certain as possible we can that we're going to be able to deliver the upside as well as just the cash flow throughout the
I
deal.
see, I see. Now, given those metrics, Mike, does that mean that you tend to gravitate towards perhaps some secondary or tertiary markets? Can you achieve those cash-on-cash returns in probably the hottest cities, perhaps that always get talked about, whether it's the Dallas, the Orlando, the Carolinas, and things like that? Or do you find yourself maybe transitioning to metros or perhaps secondary markets within around those metros? Can you maybe kind of
Yeah. We like secondary markets and tertiary markets. I mean, I live in a secondary tertiary market, uh, so we like those. They are better for cash flow. Um, the people, you still see deals coming across in the Dallases and the Carolinas, promising these 8 and 9 and even 10% cash on cash deals. I'm not saying that they won't deliver, but when I look a little deeper, some of the assumptions they're using to get those returns,
Mhm,
uh, I'd say they're a little aggressive for my taste anyway.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but I'm sure there's always a needle in a haystack, even in the hot markets that you can
Sure.
find will deliver those deals.
Mhm,
But I find that the secondary, tertiary markets are a little bit more consistent and
mhm.
ability to deliver those returns. I know that I've talked to a lot of people who are in deals, other deals. Some of our investors that are in other deals, they they say, "I'm so glad we're invested with you. You guys have the only deals that are performing right now." So
Great, great.
I'm sure we've probably lost out on some deals because we are so conservative, but I think our certainty of performance is more important to us than the ability to generate deals.
Sure, sure. Now, within your partnership, as three of you are, Mike, what are some of the strengths you bring to the table, perhaps, and how is your partnership layered in terms of who does the acquisition, who does perhaps the deal analysis and the investor relations side and stuff like that? Can you maybe share how is that structured?
Yeah, Carl, he's full time in our business, and as I mentioned before, and so he's a numbers guy also. He loves spreadsheets. He loves the numbers. So he does a lot of our initial deal analysis and
Hmm.
underwriting, and then once he gets that completed, if he thinks that it looks good, we will jump on a Zoom call like this, and we'll go walk through the numbers and vet it out as a team. Myself, having construction background, I'm big into the rehab component of things and dealing with contractors, things of that nature. Rodney, he having a owning several medical practices, he's dealt with physicians and other high net worth individuals being in tech in Oklahoma, has a lot of oil friends and things like that. So he's done to this point a lot of our legal and investor relations work, but
Hmm.
we all have responsibility for investor relations
Sure. Hmm.
and broker relationships as well, kind of in our own respective markets.
Hmm.
So to there are some subspecialties, so to speak, but we overlap and a lot of our responsibilities, and helps us hold each other accountable as well.
Sure, sure, sure. Boy, it's quite a group, and the things that you have done and achieved is really inspiring. And thank you for coming on today, Mike.
My
Please,
pleasure.
sure, please share with the listeners like how they can, find you and learn more about your company.
Sure. If you'd like to visit our website, it's tridentmultifamily.com, tridentmultifamily.com, or you can follow us on Facebook or LinkedIn, Trident Multifamily. And feel free to reach out anytime through our email, mike@tridentmultifamily.com. Be happy to answer any questions. If you'd like to talk to us about strategic capital partnerships or even investing passively in some of our deals, be happy to create that SEC compliant relationship.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it, Mike. And viewers and listeners of the podcast can also reach us at premiumcashflow.com, where expert guests like Mike and a lot of others regularly come on. If you're listening and you are interested to perhaps learn or passively invest, kindly connect with us using Invest With Us, and we would be happy to jump on a phone call and understand what your goals are and which markets you are looking to invest. We are certainly in partnerships with a lot of groups like Mike and others, wherein incredible deals do come by. So the opportunities, there's no short of opportunities, that's for sure. So I appreciate your time, Mike. Thank you for coming
My
on.
pleasure.
It is a pleasure, and I look forward to exchanging more notes and learning more about your company on a future podcast as well. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Premium Cashflow Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please join us at premiumcashflow.com to sign up for weekly updates, research articles, and more. We will see you again for another great interview with an expert guest.